wonder what sort of music you grew up with, because it seems that music that we listen to, that we remember from our childhood, from our teenage years, is what is significant. It's what influences us, what shapes our memories. Perhaps in a way it expresses the culture of our formative years. And because of that, it's probably different for each different generation. So for me, being a teenager in the latter part of the 1970s, it was groups like Dire Straits and the punk generation, as well as the glam rock of Slade and Sweet, and Elton John and ABBA and all of that. But what was significant for me from a Christian point of view was also bands like Larry Norman, the Norman Barrett Band, Steve Taylor, After the Fire, and of course Ishmael. Now, I'm sure if you thought about the music that influenced you, that was around when you were growing up, then there would be memories of different groups, different influences on your life, and maybe different reflections of the culture that you grew up in or that you remember from your teenage years. But some music seems to be timeless somehow. Some types of music seem to kind of span lots of generations. And in 1966, Simon and Garfunkel produced a song on one of their albums. Parsley, Sage, Rosemary and Thyme was the album. And I guess you'd call it a protest song, a song of significance, a song that's called the 7 o'clock news. The background to the song is the news from that time, from 1966. And then over the top of the song, with all the kind of background to the song, is the Christmas song Silent Night being sung. And the point of the song is maybe to highlight the contrast between the worlds of the news and the world of the song, the words that the song was signifying. Silent night, holy night, all is calm, all is bright, round yon virgin mother and child. And maybe if we were to repeat the process of producing that song now and picked out the news headlines from the last year or so, we would see that same juxtaposition, that same contrast of heavenly peace not being in our world, just like it perhaps wasn't in 1966. And similarly, some of the other carols and songs that we use at Christmas time give the impression of peace and goodwill on earth. Or maybe gentle Jesus, meek and mild. That kind of illusion of it all being okay at Christmas. You know, that interview that we've perhaps mentioned where the pop star or the famous person is asked, well, what would you like to see this Christmas time? And they think for a moment, I think for effect really, and then they come out with the pat answer of, oh, peace and goodwill to all men. But then I guess it raises a question, doesn't it? Is Christmas just a celebration of wishful thinking? Or is there more to it than that? Is it just an illusion, or is there some reality? And I think it's particularly important when we are faced with the reality of wars, of conflicts, the poor, and so on in our world. And maybe people forget that even Jesus said that all of the things that I've just mentioned would be around until the end of time. That the wars would be there, the poor would be there. Conflict would be there. The world at the end of the Old Testament in the Bible is not too different from 1966 or even our world today. The technology might be different, but the darkness, the gloom, the struggles that were around in society then are similar to the way that they are now. And yet Isaiah predicts Emmanuel, God with us. And perhaps we struggle with the idea of God becoming human. But even more than that God would be born as an ordinary person by a virgin? Really? Is that even logical to believe that God, who created everything from nothing, is capable of becoming a human being, but still being God and being born of a virgin? In my opinion, the straight answer is yes. Isaiah heard from God and prophesied about the coming Emmanuel, the wonderful counselor. But then later on in the prophecy, there is another person. There's this person described as a servant who would willingly suffer and bear people's guilt. Jesus, Emmanuel, he is the light of the world, the light that breaks through all the darkness. And yet in our lost and fallen world, where it seems that there is a counsellor for every situation, we ignore that light. A counsellor for the time after a major trauma or a tragedy, for those in the military, for those in financial services, personal counsellors, lifestyle counsellors, body image counsellors, beauty counsellors, and so on and so forth. There's even a counsellor for those who want to be more assertive or more aggressive. And then, of course, you've got the counsellor for the people who have been influenced by those who've become more aggressive and more assertive. I wonder if it's the same person who counsels both sides of that need. Now, I'm not saying before people start texting me or WhatsApping or phoning or anything else, I am not saying that we shouldn't have counsellors or that we don't need counsellors. There are times in our lives when we need some help and some support. But I think there is a huge problem when the counselling that's on offer lacks a moral compass, when there is no direction. In our world today, we seem to have lost our desire or our recognition that we need to know where north is. There needs to be an understanding that if we have no direction or no idea of what good or evil or what right and wrong or what up and down is or anything else that needs to have two sides to it, we've blurred the definition. And somehow we've changed the way that we see the world in our modern society. There seems to be no clearly defined rights or wrongs. So where does that leave us? Because now we have no real truth. Parents, children, governments, and the education system are being influenced by the latest trend or the latest big campaign. And I think we're all in a mess. We're in a deep spiritual darkness in our world today. We're looking for solutions in all the wrong places because our world is in such darkness. as far as I can see it, the only solution in our world is the wonderful Counselor, Almighty God, everlasting Father, and Prince of Peace. Jesus, Emmanuel, the light of the world, is all of those things and the only solution to our problems. So this Christmas, will you submit to the light?